Chapter 1. The girl Luis was sponsoring sent him a late-night text. Today is a safe day. No need for protection. A minute later, she retracted the message. The next day, I took Luis's car to the hospital for a pregnancy checkup. There was a wet stain on the seat. A buzzing sound echoed in my mind. I closed the car door and walked back home. My hands trembled as I called the hospital. Please cancel my appointment for today and reschedule it for an abortion. The sooner, the better. MS. Laura. You're only a few weeks pregnant. The embryo is too small for the procedure. It's recommended to wait another 2 weeks. All right. I'll come back in 2 weeks. Thank you. At that moment, Luis had just finished showering and stepped out of the bathroom. He overheard my last sentence. Where are you going in 2 weeks? He asked, drying his hair, puzzled. To the obstetrics and gynecology clinic. I replied truthfully. Is something wrong with the baby? Luis's expression looked anxious. After all, this child was the result of several rounds of IVF, a hard-fought success. No, it's very healthy. I answered truthfully again. Luis let out a sigh of relief and pulled me into his arms. Sweetheart, I might have to go on a business trip at the end of the month. I won't be able to accompany you for the checkup. It's fine. I can go alone. The notification sound of a WeChat message came from the laptop on the table. Luis's voice grew softer, filled with guilt. Thank you for all you've done. My love, I love you. His tone was tender, just like it had been over the past 5 years. If this were before, I would have smiled sweetly and replied, I love you too. But now, all I felt was a wave of nausea churning in my stomach. Unable to say anything more, I covered my mouth and ran to the bathroom, as if trying to vomit out all my internal organs. Turns out, a person can betray you while still claiming to love you. Are you okay, sweetheart? Luis followed me with a worried expression, gently patting my back. His hand was warm, but it sent a chill down to my bones. I'm fine. Probably just morning sickness. The doctor mentioned this could happen early on. My poor love. If I could, I'd take all this pain away from you, Luis said with heartfelt concern. If I hadn't seen that chat and the evidence in his car, I might have believed him. That night, Luis unusually didn't retreat to his study to work late. Instead, he stayed with me the whole time, as if he was still the man who only loved me. But I knew there was no going back. In 2 weeks, I would terminate this pregnancy and leave him for good. I would make him suffer 100 times more than the pain he caused me. Chapter 2. The next morning, I woke up to see Luis busy in the kitchen. Sweetheart, I read some tips last night. They say yam and quinoa porridge is good for morning sickness. It'll be ready soon, he said. He wore an apron, and the morning sunlight streaming through the window created a warm and cozy scene. While eating, I noticed his thumb wrapped in a bandage, with blood seeping through. What happened to your hand? It's nothing, just a small cut while slicing the yam. Try it and see if it's good, he replied with his usual gentle smile. His handsome, elegant face made me feel a little dazed. When we first got married, he used to take time to cook my favorite meals, but as his career became busier, he hadn't done this in a long time. You don't have to do this. It's not like we can't afford to hire help, I said indifferently, no longer feeling the same tenderness toward him as before. I just don't want you to suffer alone. I have to do something to make you feel better, he said softly, seemingly unbothered by my distant attitude. In the past, I would have been deeply moved, thinking he was referring to the effort I went through for IVF. Now, I finally understood his kindness toward me was born out of guilt. Sensing my low mood, Luis cautiously asked, What's wrong, sweetheart? Nothing. Probably just the hormones. My mood's been terrible lately. I deflected with an excuse. He took my hand, his eyes full of concern and tenderness. Then when I get back from my trip at the end of the month, let's go somewhere to relax. Didn't you always want to visit Bali? I nodded lightly, lowering my head to hide my emotions. We wouldn't be going anywhere together. In 10 days, I'd be gone from his life for good. A notification sounded on his phone. Luis picked it up, glanced at the screen, and his smile deepened. Sweetheart, Selena says she wants to visit you this weekend. She's been so happy since hearing about your pregnancy. Selena, Luis's sponsored college student from 4 years ago, and the woman in the intimate photos from last night. Her parents had passed away, and she had an innocent, harmless appearance. After graduating, she joined our company as Luis's assistant, saying it was to repay us. I had always treated her like a younger sister, never imagining she'd end up involved with Luis. Clenching my spoon tightly, I masked my disgust. "No, I'm not in the mood to see anyone," I said flatly. Luis paused, then nodded. "All right, I'll let her know. We can invite her another time when you're feeling better." He casually started typing a message to her right in front of me. Looking at his flawless expression, I felt an urge to laugh. What kind of psychological strength does it take to act so confidently and fearlessly? After Luis left for work, I couldn't take it anymore. I got up and dumped everything he had cooked straight into the trash. My eyes fell on the wedding photo in the living room, its presence unbearably mocking. I took it down and threw it into the garbage, along with all the gifts he had ever given me. These things, once my treasures, were now trash. I didn't want to see them ever again. When Luis returned home that evening, he caught me dragging a box toward the door. "Sweetheart, what are you doing?" "I sorted through some useless junk today. I'm taking it out," I responded calmly. "I'll do it. You're pregnant. You should be careful." Luis carried the box downstairs. If he had opened it, he would have seen that the so-called junk was our wedding photo and the gifts he had given me. If he had noticed, he would have realized something was wrong. If he had realized, he would have desperately begged for my forgiveness. But he didn't. 1 week before leaving, I returned to work. Chapter 3. Since I began the IVF treatment, it had been 6 months since I last came to the office. "Look, these are flowers from my lovely boyfriend," Selena was proudly showing off, her voice smug. Getting closer, I saw it was a bouquet of lilies. The water droplets on the petals reflected the light, fresh like the roses Luis had sent to me via a courier that morning. But what I received were red roses. "What's all this noise during work hours?" Seeing me arrive, impeccably dressed, Selena's smile froze for a moment. "Laura, what brings you here?" "What? Do I need to ask your permission to come to my own company?" I looked at her dispassionately. She was decked out head to toe in designer brands. Her desk was also covered in Jellycat plush toys. "This company isn't your home. Focus less on non-work matters." My voice was cold, my expression stern. "Selena, get rid of all this junk." Luis had rushed out, his expression severe as he reprimanded her. Selena's eyes filled with a mix of resentment and grievance, but she obediently bowed her head and started tidying up. "Sweetheart, why aren't you resting at home? I worry about you and the baby." Luis helped me to my office and sat me down. I smiled at him and said, "I suddenly craved the sticky rice chicken from the cafe next door, so I came." "Sure thing. I'll go get it for you right away." Luis affectionately patted my head, grabbed his coat, and headed out, through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I watched him as he appeared downstairs. Then, I took out the pinhole camera I had prepared from my bag. Half an hour later, Luis came back with a takeout box. After eating, I made an excuse about wanting to go shopping and found a cafe to sit in. I turned on my phone, and as expected, Selena had already thrown herself into Luis's arms. "Why were you so harsh earlier, brother? Those things were clearly gifts from you." She pouted. "I should punish you. Maybe I'll give you a little love mark." She tilted her head, pressing her lips against Luis's neck. The next moment, Luis coldly pushed her away. "Do you want Laura to see us? If she finds out, I'll fire you immediately." "Know your place." Selena's eyes flashed with unwillingness, but she gave a coquettish smile and kissed his cheek. All right. I remember what you said. I can't let anything affect Laura. That's the bottom line. I'm even wearing your favorite schoolgirl outfit today. It's just down there." Her voice was full of seduction. As she straddled Luis's lap, a dark desire flashed across Luis's eyes, and he reached out to tear at her clothes. I couldn't take it any longer. I turned away and vomited. The low, panting, and suggestive sounds from my phone continued for a long time before fading away. I saved the recording of everything that had happened and went to see the lawyer. The lawyer said that with concrete evidence of Luis's infidelity in hand, He would have no choice but to agree to the divorce. I felt a sense of relief. Just under a week to go. That night when I got home, Luis, unusually, hadn't gone to work late in his study. He had already showered and was waiting for me. Chapter 4. He was wrapped in a bathrobe, lighting scented candles on the dining table. Sweetheart, I've been busy with work lately and have been neglecting you. Tonight, let's have a candlelight dinner together. I had to admit, he was meticulous in every detail. Anything that could carry a scent had already been dealt with beforehand. The dishes on the table were all ordered in advance, my favorites. For 5 years, he had always been so thoughtful, remembering everything I loved to eat. But now, none of it moved me anymore. Sweetheart, I just noticed our wedding photo is gone. Huh, why did you take off the necklace I gave you? That necklace was the first gift he ever bought for me when we got together 5 years ago. Spending all his savings, in these 5 years, I had never taken it off, not even while bathing. It had already been thrown away along with that box of junk that Luis had taken out with his own hands a few days ago. The photo made me uncomfortable, so I put it away. As for the necklace, I took it off during the checkup at the hospital, and I found it troublesome to put it back on. After 6 months of IVF treatments, my figure and appearance had been changed by all those hormones. I was no longer the same as before. A look of guilt and distress flashed in Luis's eyes. Sweetheart, you've gone through all this because of me. To me, you'll always be beautiful. The next day, Luis enthusiastically dragged me to the mall's baby section. Sweetheart, we should start buying things for the baby early. Before I knew it, he had already picked out several baskets of items with the help of the sales assistant's suggestions. Then he brought them over to me with pride. Crouching down to show me each one, I sat on the sofa, running my fingers over the tiny, adorable baby items, and my eyes turned red. I'm sorry, baby. Mommy can't bring you into this world. Sweetheart, why are you crying? Luis's face fell, and he asked me anxiously. It's nothing. The baby just kicked me. He breathed a sigh of relief and pulled me into his arms. The sales assistant nearby looked at us with envy. Ma'am, your husband treats you so well. It's rare to see such a loving couple these days. I smiled but didn't respond. He was affectionate with me, but he was also affectionate with others. After leaving, we ran into Selena. When she saw what Luis was holding, a dark look crossed her eyes. Laura, the boss treats you so well. Unlike my boyfriend, he won't even go shopping with me, let alone do anything else, she said in a disappointed tone. I pretended not to notice Luis's expression. A woman needs to improve her own value instead of relying on a man. Selena's expression stiffened. I want to get pregnant for him too, to raise my worth. But he doesn't want it. He says he likes my figure as it is. As she spoke, she spun around, giving a smug smile toward my slightly bloated body. Lara's worth has never needed to be proven by having a baby. Without her, there wouldn't be me today, nor would there be you now, Luis said, his voice cold and full of warning. I'm sorry. That's not what I meant. Get lost. And from tomorrow onwards, no tight clothes at work. Luis scolded her with a dark expression, and Selena ran off. Eyes reddened. Sweetheart, don't pay attention to her. I love you no matter what. Luis helped me into the car with all the warmth in the world. He really was quite the actor. I curled my lips into a sneer. When we got home, he carried all the bags and packages into the nursery, picking up a Bonnie Bunny plush toy. He sighed. Sweetheart, our baby will be born in the year of the rabbit too. I bet they'll be 100 times cuter than this little bunny. I took it from him and gently stroked the rabbit's soft, furry face. We wouldn't be having a baby anymore. In 3 days, I would go in for the abortion. Chapter 5. Over the past 2 days, I went to see the lawyer and handed over all the evidence I had recorded of Luis's infidelity. He quickly organized everything and asked me when I wanted to file for divorce. In 2 days, I would terminate this pregnancy and leave this house for good. When I got home, I received a message from Luis. Sweetheart, I need to prepare for my trip over the next couple of days and won't be able to be with you. Make sure you eat on time. And if there's anything you want to eat, you can ask the housekeeper to come over and cook. Love you. I didn't reply. Instead, I knowingly opened my phone. As expected, Selena was sitting on his lap, feeding him food with her hands. Luis looked somewhat resistant, but she giggled and said, "Brother, soon your baby will need feeding too, consider this practice. Watch how I do it." Then, she held a piece of salmon in her mouth and slowly pressed her lips against Luis's. The moment their lips met, Luis reached out and held her tightly. "You're such a little temptress." His voice was deep and hoarse, filled with lust. The sounds of intimacy began once again. I felt sick, so I got up and went to the nursery, cutting all the baby items I'd bought to shreds. Late at night, Luis opened the wardrobe, looking a bit surprised. "Sweetheart, why are there so few clothes left in here?" "I'm about to go on a trip, so I packed them ahead of time to be shipped over later," I said, pointing at the large suitcase in the corner of the bedroom. Everything I was taking with me was in there, already packed. He laughed and shook his head. "There's no need. I'll take you shopping again once we're there. Why go through so much trouble?" "No, the company's cash flow is a bit tight lately, so better to save where we can," I said casually. Finally, the day of my scheduled abortion arrived. It was also the day Luis was leaving for his business trip. Before he left, he put an envelope in my hand. "Sweetheart, this is a surprise for you and a little encouragement. I know it's tough going to the hospital alone this time." Inside were 2 tickets to Bali, dated for a week later. "Wait for me to come back, okay? I love you," he said, planting a kiss on my forehead before wheeling his suitcase out the door. I also headed to the hospital, lying down on the cold operating table without hesitation. By evening, I dragged my battered body back home. "Sweetheart, I miss you so much already. And it's only been a day." On the video call, Luis was wearing a bathrobe, talking about love and how much he missed me. But I saw, reflected in the large glass window behind him, 2 wine glasses on the table. Sadness, pain, and rage overwhelmed me. I hung up the call, blocked and deleted both him and Selena. Then I shredded the 2 plane tickets, leaving them next to my abortion paperwork. This was my final gift to him. Dragging my suitcase, I left the home we had lived in for 5 years without looking back. Chapter 6. Luis felt a pang of anxiety as the video call was suddenly cut off. He tried to call me back, only to find he had been blocked. At that moment, he could no longer think about anything else. He jumped up and quickly got dressed. Selena came out of the bathroom, covering herself with a sheer lace bra, and asked where he was going. He yelled, "Get lost." By the time he rushed back home in the middle of the night, the house was completely dark. He turned on the lights, only to find the plane tickets torn to shreds on the table, along with a medical report for an abortion. At that moment, he went mad, rushing into every room to look for me. But all he found was the nursery, now in complete disarray. Everything had been cut to pieces, and I was nowhere to be found. At that moment, his phone rang. "Sir, you have been served with divorce papers. The court session will be held in 15 days. Please be prepared." Luis's face turned pale as he tightly gripped his phone, trying to call back. When he learned it was the lawyer I had hired half a month ago, his heart twisted in pain, and he could barely speak. "Laura, why? Why would you abort our hard-fought baby? Why would you leave me?" The lawyer sighed, reminding him, "Ms. Laura filed for divorce on the grounds of your infidelity." In an instant, Luis's mind exploded, and he collapsed to his knees, remaining there for a long time without moving. I didn't want Luis to find me, so I dragged my suitcase to another private hospital. The doctor said my condition required a 2-week rest for recovery. Conveniently, the court session would be held in 2 weeks. Originally, I wasn't planning to attend the court hearing in person, but my lawyer suggested that it would be best if I was present. After thinking about it, I agreed. It would give me half a month to consider my future. It was October now. The weather was pleasant, and I was recovering well. Every night, I would sit quietly on the balcony, holding the Bonnie Bunny. It was the only thing I couldn't bring myself to destroy, the one piece in which I entrusted all my longing for my baby. In the dark sky, a shooting star suddenly streaked across. In that instant, tears poured down my face. "Baby, I'm sorry. Mommy doesn't want you to have a father with stains on his character from the moment you're born. You won't blame Mommy, right? Fireworks suddenly bloomed in the distant sky, magnificent and splendid, like tiny fairies dancing, joyful and beautiful. I held back my tears and made a wish with my eyes closed. Baby, come find Mommy in the next life. Mommy will love you with all her heart. While waiting for the court date, I booked a ticket to Haishur in advance. A poem by Heise had made me long for that kind of city for many years. Facing the sea, with spring blossoms. I have always been afraid of the cold, but because of Luis, after graduation, I chose to stay in Beijing to build a life with him. Winters in Beijing are very cold, but I once thought having a home, having him, was enough to keep me warm. From now on, I would have no home and no desire for him anymore. Naturally, there was no reason for me to stay. My lawyer came to see me a few times. He said Luis had been searching for me every day and had even knelt down at the law office, begging him to tell Luis where I was. Our mutual friends also called, asking what was going on. After I explained the situation briefly, they were all deeply regretful. Some of our longtime business partners said, "We initially chose to work with you because of how strong your relationship was and how trustworthy you were. Given what happened with Luis, we need to reconsider our partnership for the next quarter. Investors always value character and trustworthiness the most." I didn't stop them. Instead, I wished them all great success with a smile. Upon hearing that I planned to relocate to Haishur, Nestor, the owner of a company there, extended an offer. "Ms. Lara, we really need high-level management talent like you. We've had a great partnership over the past few years, and I hope you consider joining us to create something wonderful." I smiled and agreed to meet for an interview once I got there. 3 days before the court hearing, Luis found me. Chapter 7. In just over 10 days, he had become a shadow of his former self, disheveled, hollow-eyed, with a scruffy beard. There was no trace left of his once refined and handsome appearance. "Lara, I've wronged you. It's my fault we lost our child. And I hurt you." He held on to the abortion report, tears streaming down his face. When I saw it, my first thought wasn't that we'd lost our baby. I could only think of how much pain you must have been in. You've always been so afraid of pain, yet you bravely went through IVF for me, enduring all the injections and tests. And just when we were halfway there, I hurt you so deeply that you chose to end it and lose our baby. Lara, I am so sorry. He fell to his knees before me, crying uncontrollably. No need to apologize. These were all things I willingly chose to do, and they were my decisions. I spoke calmly, coldly. During this time, I had hated him deeply. I imagined countless times how I would curse him, hit him, humiliate him, and question him if I ever saw him again. But when he finally appeared before me, I felt an eerie calmness. Perhaps it was because I no longer loved him. His actions no longer stirred any emotion within me. "Please don't be like this. Lara, you can hit me, curse me, do anything you want. Just don't hurt yourself." "Luis, the thing that hurts me the most is seeing you here now. Do you understand? If you want me to feel better, do me a favor and leave. Stop saying things that make me feel sick." I cut him off. Getting up to leave, Luis reached out, grabbing the hem of my shirt tightly. "Please, just give me a little more time. Let me finish what I have to say, okay? I'm begging you." I didn't turn around, nor did I move. He began to recount what he had been through over the past few days. That day, when he realized I had left home, he rushed back in the middle of the night, seeing that I had destroyed everything he had bought for the baby. He suddenly remembered the box he had thrown away earlier. Only then did he slowly realize that a lot of things were missing from our home, our couple's items. Everything that symbolized us were gone. It finally dawned on him that I had planned to leave him for some time. Without a moment's hesitation, he rushed downstairs, almost falling over himself, and grabbed the neighborhood cleaner, asking, "Auntie, do you remember me throwing away a large box here some time ago?" The auntie remembered instantly. "Oh, so it was you who threw that away." "Young man, I thought it was strange that so many good things were just being thrown out like that." Luis's eyes lit up, and he grabbed her hand anxiously. "The other stuff doesn't matter, but the photos, Our wedding pictures. The auntie shook her head and sighed. The things in the box were all taken that same night by people out for a walk. The wedding photos and some notebooks were tossed into the garbage truck and burned. We even asked about it in the owner's group chat. The property management told us that the woman in the photos confirmed that she didn't want them, and we could handle it as we saw fit. Luis's face turned deathly pale. He had muted the owner's group chat a long time ago, too busy with work to pay attention to it. He pulled out his phone, frantically scrolling back until he found my response. Yes, we're getting divorced. I don't need any of these things anymore. Please handle them as you see fit. Thank you. Luis let out a bitter laugh, finally realizing how deeply he had hurt me. Maybe his expression was too heartbreaking, because the auntie sighed and pulled a necklace out from her collar. This was in that box too. I thought it was really pretty, so I kept it. Here, take it back. Luis's dull eyes suddenly brightened. He carefully took the necklace, tears streaming down his face in his excitement. Thank you. This was the first gift I gave her 5 years ago. Thank you for keeping it. The auntie smiled awkwardly, trying to console him. If it means that much to you, then take it back. Don't cry. Young man, make sure you're sure about what you're throwing out next time. Luis took the necklace out of his pocket and handed it to me, his face full of hope. Laura, I got back the most important memory. Does that mean there's still a chance for us? Can you forgive me this time? Selena has already been fired. I'll never see her again. Please believe me. I slapped the necklace out of his hand, sending it to the ground. Stop trying to move yourself. From the moment you betrayed your vows, you should have expected this outcome. You disgust me, Luis. So please, stay away from me. Thank you. Finally speaking my truth, I felt a wave of relief and walked away without hesitation. Behind me, Luis remained on his knees, refusing to get up. That night, I had a long, distant dream. In the dream, we still loved each other deeply, painfully. When I woke up, I realized my pillow was soaked with tears. Chapter 8. 3 days later, the court hearing arrived. The moment I stepped into the courtroom, Luis shouted excitedly, calling me sweetheart. He had shaved his beard and was wearing the old suit I had bought for him 5 years ago. It was a treasure he could never bring himself to throw away. Today, he must have worn it hoping it would soften my heart. I didn't respond and instead took my seat. The judge began by routinely asking each of us our thoughts and reasons for divorce. Luis firmly refused to divorce, claiming he still loved me. My lawyer, however, submitted multiple pieces of evidence of his infidelity. Luis's face turned pale, and he shouted at me, Laura, look at me. Do you really have to be so heartless? I almost felt like laughing. Who was truly being heartless here? The only person I've ever loved is you. And you know it. Whatever I had with Selena was just fooling around. I admit it. I didn't control myself and let myself be seduced into making a mistake. But I only made the same mistake that every man makes. I was out of patience for his shameless nonsense. Your Honor, as you can see, I no longer have any feelings for Luis. Please deliver your ruling. The judge nodded and brought down the gavel. Mr. Luis, given the significant fault on your part in the marriage, and since your wife insists that the relationship is irreparably broken, this court grants Ms. Lara's petition for divorce. As for the assets, given that you are the party at fault, Ms. Lara will receive 2/3 of the shared assets. The house and car are to be split evenly between you both. Do you have any objections? Luis kept staring at me the entire time, his eyes red and face filled with grief. Lara, so you really don't love me anymore, right? I said nothing and just nodded coldly. If this is what you want, then I'll grant it. I'm sorry, it was my fault, and I hurt you. Luis had no objections. Almost all of our shared assets were awarded to me. I no longer wanted the house, and I rarely used the car. So Luis gave me all of the cash he was entitled to. In the end, I failed you. I owe you too much, and this is the only way I can try to make amends. Lara, even if there's no hope for us, can we at least not cut off contact? I just want to watch you from afar. If I know you're doing well, I'll feel a bit better. I shook my head and refused. There's no need for that. In the past, I lived well, and in the future, I'll only live better. You know my capabilities. So there's no need to worry. In our company, I had never contributed any less than he had. It was only in the past year that I took time off to try and have his baby. Maybe that's what led him to the delusion that I needed to rely on him to survive. Luis seemed to know what I was thinking, and he gave me a bitter smile as he tried to explain. I never doubted your capabilities. That's also one of the reasons why I love you. I didn't want to hear him reminisce about the past anymore, and impatiently cut him off. Mr. Luis, I have other matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving now. His eyes dimmed, and he asked quietly if I would be staying in Beijing. I didn't answer and simply walked away. Why would it matter to him whether I stayed or not? That night, I packed all my belongings and flew to Haishur. Nestor personally picked me up from the airport and welcomed me. At dinner, he offered me terms I couldn't refuse, and I agreed to take on the role of marketing director. He was very pleased and toasted me with tea instead of wine, exclaiming, Luis is bound to find out sooner or later that I've recruited you. Our contract still has a few months left before it ends. In that time, you'll inevitably have to meet and interact with him. Will that be a burden for you? I smiled lightly and shook my head. I was never the one who did wrong. He's the one who should carry the burden. As expected, 2 months later, Luis flew to Haishur under the pretext of discussing business. Chapter 9. Out of humanitarian concern. I drove to the airport to pick him up. Once he got in the car, he was the first to break the silence. How have you been lately? I smiled and nodded, glancing at him a few times from the corner of my eye. He was thinner now, his cheeks sunken, and there were dark circles under his eyes. But now, I have regained all my former confidence and poise. Since I moved to Haishur after the divorce, I've been truly happy. I bought a house with an ocean view, just as I'd always wanted, and filled my balcony with the plants I love. The climate here is gentle and soothing, much more relaxing than Beijing. I often went out for business, and I took the opportunity to explore the city. One rainy day, I even rescued a stray cat. I named it Lucky. Lucky was very intuitive, perhaps from having been astray for so long. It truly cherished our time together. When I missed the baby, it would climb onto my lap and nuzzle me with its head. When I felt down, it would meow as if trying to comfort me, trying to speak with me. I also went to the hospital for a full health checkup, and the doctor said I was recovering well. I started working out, lifting weights. You're even more beautiful, Laura, Luis said softly, almost as if talking to himself, but I heard every word. Lately, I haven't been able to sleep well. I keep dreaming about the days we spent together. I brought that necklace with me. It still holds a lot of meaning for us, and I hope you'll keep it, even if you don't forgive me. That's all right. He placed the box containing the necklace into my car's glove compartment, then pulled out a glass frame, within which was a blood-stained letter of promise. I brought this too. After all, it was your father's keepsake, and I should return it to you. My heart ached, and I was thrown into memories. Luis and I got together during our final year of college. By coincidence, we interned at the same multinational company and, as fate would have it, were placed in the same department. Since most of our colleagues were foreigners, we became especially close. At first, we were just work partners. Then we started having lunch together. And finally, we became friends who could confide in each other. I could feel his affection for me, and I felt the same way. The difference was, he was a poor boy from the countryside, while I was the only daughter of a well-off local family. He gathered the courage to confess his feelings on my birthday, but my parents were strongly opposed to us being together. I was furious and tried to force them into agreeing by running away from home. In their attempt to bring me back, my parents were in a car accident and both lost their lives. In the back seat of their car was a cherry cake, my favorite. My mom had made that cake herself. She wanted to make up for my missed birthday. In my dad's pocket, he also had a letter of promise that he'd written, listing all his hopes and expectations for my future husband. He was ready to accept Luis. That day, the cake was shattered in the crash, scattering across the car, and the letter of promise was soaked in my father's blood. I was in such pain that I nearly passed out. During the rescue, my dad used all his strength to place my hand in Luis's. My daughter, I'm entrusting her to you, Luis. His eyes filled with tears, knelt by my father's hospital bed, bowing over and over. Uncle, please rest assured. I swear I'll take good care of Laura, and I'll love her with my life. Luis took out that letter of promise and signed his name on it. My father finally closed his eyes, smiling. After that, I was in a deep depression for a long time. Luis stayed by my side, comforting me. Laura, you're not alone. You still have me. I'll be your family forever. For 5 years. He did fulfill that promise. He loved me as if nothing had changed. But that didn't stop him from betraying me. Why? I finally couldn't help but ask. Luis lowered his head, his voice full of guilt and regret. Laura, whether you believe me or not, the only person I've ever loved has always been you. I couldn't withstand the temptation. I know how dirty I am, and that's why I always washed myself before seeing you. I almost wanted to laugh. He was trying to make his destruction of our relationship sound so harmless. Forget it. You'll never be clean. Not in this lifetime. I spat out the words, and the car once again fell into silence. When we arrived at the restaurant, Luis spoke softly. Yes, you're right. I've lost you forever. Chapter 10. Luis drank a lot at the welcome banquet. President Wang seemed a bit worried and asked if I should try to stop him. I smiled and took a sip of tea. No need. As long as he's happy. My words reached Luis's ears, and with a bitter smile, he gulped down another large glass of alcohol. By the end, he was already out of his senses, struggling to call out to me. Laura, why didn't you wait for me? Why did you leave on your own? The next day, when he came to the company for a meeting, his eyes were swollen and bloodshot. This time, he took the initiative to swap seats with someone, saying, Laura doesn't like the smell of alcohol. Let's switch seats. These little details, he never forgot them. I thought I wouldn't be affected anymore. But at that moment, I felt a pang of pain. After the meeting, Luis left in a hurry without lingering. I thought he had returned to Beijing until I saw him after work the next day, standing downstairs with a bouquet of roses. This time, he was in a new suit, and there was no trace of alcohol on him. Laura, I don't want to leave anymore. I just want to keep watching over you. Could you give me one last chance? Suddenly, I felt annoyed. Don't make me think even worse of you, Luis. You know we can't go back. The sky suddenly started to rain. I didn't linger, quickly getting in my car and driving away. The next morning, he was still waiting downstairs at the company. This time, he was holding a box of cherry cake. Laura, I had this made based on my memory, just like the one Auntie made. Does it look similar? It did look a lot like the photos left on my mom's phone before she passed. But I no longer liked cherry cake. It's pointless. Luis, go home. Don't make a fool of yourself in front of everyone. I threw these words at him and went into the office building. That evening, when I came out, it started to rain again. He was still standing there in the rain, like an untiring statue. The ice cream cake in his hands had already melted, looking quite a mess. Seeing me looking at him, a spark of hope flickered in his tired eyes. I sighed and asked, Do you want to have dinner together? He nodded with excitement. At the restaurant, he hurried to order many of my favorite dishes, but I had no appetite and decided to get straight to the point. Luis, I think it's necessary for me to make things clear with you. I suffered so much for you, even trying to have a child. Yet you went behind my back and slept with another woman. Do you think I could ever forgive you? The only reason I'm willing to have dinner with you today is because I know your personality. If I don't make things absolutely clear, you'll keep clinging to me forever. Luis lowered his head in disappointment, and after a long pause, he looked up anxiously. It was actually an accident the first time with Selena. After a business dinner, I was drunk and mistook her for you. When I sobered up, I wanted to pay her off as compensation, but she cried and said she loved me. She said she didn't want anything, just wanted to stay by my side, and promised she wouldn't interfere with us. I had supported her for 4 years, so I had some feelings for her. Foolishly, I accepted her offer. I know I was incredibly wrong and regret not confessing to you after the first mistake. He smiled bitterly. If I had confessed after that first mistake, Would you have forgiven and accepted me? I shook my head. Cheating is cheating. Even if it's just physical, don't look for excuses. Dirty is still dirty. And every time after that, you enjoyed it, didn't you? Don't deceive yourself. I tore away the last shred of dignity I had left for him, forcing him to confront his hypocrisy and irresponsibility. Love is restraint. It's responsibility, and you lacked both. So, in reality, you never loved me the way you imagined you did. Luis opened his mouth but couldn't say a word in response. After a long while, he finally looked at me with red-rimmed eyes and asked, Laura, on our wedding day, you said you'd stay with me for the rest of our lives. Do you remember? You held me so tightly and said you wanted to be with me forever. He clutched my hand tightly, like a drowning man struggling in vain. Luis, I was never the one who broke our vows. I pulled my hand away, replying indifferently. His whole body started trembling, and he bit his lip, trying not to let himself cry in front of everyone. Yes, I understand. I'm sorry. It's all my fault, Laura. I won't bother you anymore. I wish you happiness. Goodbye. With that, he struggled to get up and hurriedly walked away. His straightened back his last semblance of pride and dignity. Better if we never meet again. I don't want to see you anymore, I shouted at his retreating figure. In that instant, his carefully straightened back finally collapsed. His shoulders began to shake, and his whole body trembled. All right. His voice carried a heavy sob. Chapter 11. For the next 3 months, Luis never appeared again. On New Year's Eve, I received an anonymous message with only 4 words. Happy New Year. I knew it was from Luis, but I didn't reply. It wasn't until that evening when I finally got home to enjoy my solo New Year's celebration that I received a call from a friend in Beijing. He told me that something had happened to Luis. It turned out that after he returned from Haishur, he was always depressed, drowning his sorrows in alcohol. The company's funding chain had issues, and he stopped seeking partnerships, allowing the company to be seized. Selena often went to see him, but each time, she was driven away by him. Until New Year's Eve, she came again, carrying 2 bottles of wine, telling him that she was leaving after the new year and had come just to thank him for all he had done for her over the years. Perhaps the loneliness of spending New Year's Eve alone got to him, and Luis let her in. The 2 of them sat silently, finishing the 2 bottles of wine. Luis stared at his phone in despair, mumbling, "She really isn't going to respond to me." Selena threw herself onto him, holding him tightly. "But you still have me, Luis. I've liked you for 5 years, how am I any less than her?" She began kissing his face frantically, only to be pushed away harshly by Luis. "Get out. You'll never be comparable to her, not in this life or the next." Those words hurt Selena deeply. She screamed and got up, spotting a photograph in the living room. It was a photo of me, secretly taken by Luis in Haishur. On many nights, he held that photo while confessing his regrets and voicing his longing. Consumed by jealousy, Selena grabbed the photo and smashed it onto the floor. "She doesn't want you anymore. You betrayed her. What good does it do to act like you still care now?" That provoked Luis. He stood up and slapped her across the face. "Shut up! Get out!" Selena became even more hysterical. "Someone as rotten as you should be with me. Lara hates you." Luis finally lost all his sanity. He grabbed the wine bottle and struck Selena repeatedly. Glass shards embedded themselves into Selena's throat, and soon she couldn't make any sound at all. By the time Luis came to his senses, it was already too late. He looked out at the thousands of twinkling lights in the city, but there wasn't one for him. After calling the police, he went to the kitchen and used a knife to end his own life. The last thing he said over the phone to the police was, "Happy New Year. I've killed someone." When I heard all of this, I felt a sense of emotion. Fireworks were being set off near the shore, and happy laughter drifted in from outside. This is just their karma, isn't it? The gentle evening breeze, mixed with the scent of fireworks, swept in. I looked out at the distant ocean. A calm, peaceful tomorrow awaited.